Slack. That would be annoying. Hello, everyone.
Yeah,
Hey,
let's have Slack off. Liam, got your Slack off?
no.
Emails off?
Get them all off. Doing it now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Demandism. I think it's our 6th episode, actually, which is exciting. We do need to get better at doing them more regularly. It's not very many, is it? But this is a special one because it's actually part of a broader campaign, the first of our new kinds of campaigns, which we'll definitely do a whole episode on for you as well, in terms of what we're treating as a campaign. What is a definition, what's not, like how do we run them in terms of cycles, how many weeks, what goes into it, what channels and tactics we use. Another episode, because there's a lot that goes into that. But anyway, this is a part of it. And this one is all around trying to educate marketers on all the amazing things you get to do when you free yourself from lead generation tasks. Specifically, we're actually going to talk about the content side of that for this episode because we realize there's actually so much that goes into it. So we're going to be touching on the media machine, what content looks like when it's not an ebook, how can you track and measure the success of content when it's not a download, and much more as well. And then also I get to tease that there will be coming your way, sort of, I'm not allowed to give a precise timeline, but within 2 weeks, the opportunity to win some merch and also a big prize draw. Could be an Airbnb voucher, I don't know, something like that. Sorry, Jamie, I've given away too much. But there should be something really cool coming away in a couple of weeks for all of our regular Demandism listeners to get engaged with the campaign, actually bring it to life. So yeah, that should be upcoming to a cinema near you. And now we're going to kick off the episode. Please do keep your questions coming throughout, because I think what makes these really good is it's normally quite engaging and we can answer like real life questions. So we want to continue to do that. Just interrupt and shoot them across at any stage, and we will bring you either on to ask or we'll just answer them. So going to kick us off with the idea of a media machine. And this is definitely something that has come about at Cognism since we pivoted away from lead generation, and we've actually had the space and time to think about how do we generate consistent content that's of a great quality, that's going to feed our create demand efforts and ensure that we continue to build on all of that inbound demand that we need to create now that we're not doing that lead generation MQL piece. So what does a media machine mean to us? I'm not sure it's actually ever really been totally defined in the context of B2B. So at Cognism, and for me, what I mean when I talk about this is it means building your own audience with key subscriber channels. So for every company, that may well look different depending on who your persona is and who you're looking to speak to. But that would be one of the key criteria. And it also means creating processes around content that actually are going to enable you to consistently produce that top quality content that's going to power many other areas of your marketing engine and all of that amazing create demand stuff that you end up doing when you're not doing lead gen. And I think there are 3 key ingredients to a successful strategy when it comes to this. And for me, it's the quality of the content. So we actually have a quality lever at Cognism in that whatever the content is, whether it be a post that I'm putting out on my LinkedIn, or it's something that's going out on the company LinkedIn page, it's a video, we basically don't want to put anything out in the world unless we feel confident that if someone reads or engages with that piece of content, they will have learned something new that could give them a competitive advantage in their role. And for us, that is kind of the guardrail that we have set for quality. Number 2 is that you need to have a point of view. So I think you'll see there are themes throughout, like a lot of the stuff that we talk about Cognism. We're obviously big advocates on the sales side of outbound, but outbound done well. And we still believe there's a place for cold calling. And then on the marketing side, we talk a lot about this whole shift from lead generation to demand generation. So I think a point of view is also really important. And then ultimately, to become known within your audience and within your space, consistency is obviously I think the third and probably the most crucial ingredient, because you can create great quality content with a point of view, but if you're not consistent, I don't think you'll ever get really the benefits of that media engine at scale. So moving on, as I mentioned earlier, when you talk about the media engine and building this audience on key channels that matter to you, you need to identify what those key channels are. So obviously for us at Cognism, we have got a fairly large team at this stage, so we are able to look at multiple channels rather than just one or two. But I don't think your team size should prevent you from taking this approach. I think you just need to be more focused in terms of where you focus your efforts. So for us, we look at YouTube, our LinkedIn company page, the LinkedIn subject matter expert profiles pages. So for us, we have Ryan Reset, we have Dave Bentham on the sales side, and then it's myself, Fran, and Liam on the marketing side, and then our podcast, and then our newsletters, and then also our blog, which is powered by our story hunters, which I will touch on a bit more. I'm just going to quickly check the chat. I think we might have some questions. Liam, are you bored?
Sorry if I was looking bored. Didn't mean that.
Bored on listening intently.
Well, Liam, let's bring you in. Anything to add on any of our key channels? Anything I've missed, actually? You know, anything that you would want to add to this?
Of our media machine. No, not really, to be honest. No, nothing. I'm trying to think now. You did a good job.
Well, thank you, Sheila, because you've actually woken Liam up. He's back, he's focused in the room, and we can keep going.
Quite hot in the office. Maybe you were just flagging.
Yeah.
Are you in one of those booths? Because they are extremely hot.
Yeah, it's like an oven in here.
But please do keep questions coming in, and we will make sure that speakers stay fully engaged throughout. So how do you scale the media machine? Now, this is, I think, like a really important question. I'm not going to pretend that we've completely got this built out and perfect yet, because we don't, and we're still definitely in the earlier stages of our journey with the media machine, and all of the pieces and parts that go into that and the processes as well. But just just to show you like how we're reporting on this, like how we're looking at it, and the kind of content that we're producing and what goes into it. This is like just a broad overview on the video, the newsletter, and then some of our SME LinkedIn content. So from a video perspective, there's a number of ways in which we scale this out. So we have identified key themes within our target personas that are of interest. So for example, we know that things that resonate really, really well on the sales side are anything about a cadence. So prospecting cadences, examples of prospecting cadences, and then specifically for job titles or for industries. And then also we talk a lot about scripts, so cold calling scripts for calling a CMO or a C-suite, etc., etc. And these are over and over again some of our best performing assets on video. So it's actually become a great mechanism for us in which to scale, because we can create these broader themes, and then from there we can like deep dive topics specifically, and we can get different experts to come on and talk through that as well. So you can see Josh Braun is one of is featured here, and he always does really, really well for us on video and on YouTube. And then in terms of newsletters, like how are we scaling those? I think this is a really interesting one, and actually something that we'll keep looking at and deep diving, because right now we currently have 3 newsletters running. We have a demand gen digest, which is focused on demand generation for demand gen marketers. We have a content digest, and we have a sales one. And so the content one gets written by our content writers. I mean, they are literally living, breathing case studies of how to do amazing content. So they basically scale that through using their own experiences and talking about that. They're always text and long format only. And then and our demand generation digest will come from content from things like this, any of our live events that I do, or Fran does, or Liam does, the content that comes out of the videos that we produce, etc., etc., so that we can repurpose it and use it again, and it enables us to scale it across multiple channels. And then scaling the LinkedIn profiles of our SMEs. So this all comes down to planning. Like, I think because consistency is so key here, you can't get away with kind of waking up on the day and deciding if you're going to post or not. You need to have a well thought out plan. And even if it's not the exact content that you're going to post about, it's committing to the days and the number of posts that you're going to do. And I hold my hand up to not being amazing at this. Liam is actually really good, so I might bring you in, Liam, to talk about how you keep your consistency up, because I think you're a good case study in consistency here.
Yeah, I it's pretty simple, really. I just create like a document, which was actually your suggestion, Alice.
I think I'm great at telling people how to do it. My execution is not so good.
I just create a document and then try and like at the beginning of the week plan out what like 3 topics, 2 or 3 depending on like time over the week, and then just an early, if it's in the morning, maybe like early morning thing is just to write something out, or plan it, and then take up any opportunities to get recorded, because videos just make it a lot easier to like do your posts with, I find. So yeah, I think it's just like being a bit structured around it, give yourself like a time slot and a plan.
Yeah, I would actually add, the thing that has helped me, and I have been a little bit more consistent last few weeks, was I did a block recording on a day. It was a Friday afternoon, and I just like took a few topics, and that had either had a lot of comments or engagement within my older posts, and recorded videos around those topics. And now I have a bank that I can use, and so when it comes to being like, right, I definitely need to post again, that makes it much more easy to do.
Mm-hmm. I see a question actually. So you only plan a week at a time. I actually am doing it a week at a time at the moment. We got like a broad theme, right? That then I follow, that I know that I'm going to, the things I will talk about. And then, 1 week I'll think, I'll post stuff about these things. And then the next week I've planned, like, I'll be like, that week I'll do about that. And I actually, just do it. I feel like you have to be able to have some like flexibility and to be able to respond to like also stuff that's going on LinkedIn and stuff, and then you can try and be relevant as well. Whereas if you plan out for too long, some things might have changed, and then you'll be maybe not keeping up with current trends.
And I think that kind of leads into Charlie's question, and I think it's quite interesting, and I'm going to be a bit brutally honest as well. There are some people who I followed on LinkedIn because I thought their content was amazing and the quality of it was great. And I think that was at a time when they were doing it more ad hoc and more like off the cuff and as thoughts came to them, and like probably less structured. I think what they've now doubled down on is a theme and consistency, and potentially at the expense of delivering like consistently valuable content that says something new and has a point of view. I think there's a lot of repetition maybe in there now. So I think there's a really fine balance between, yes, it's true that just because you said something once, it doesn't mean you can't repeat it and say it again, and not everyone will have seen it the first time. But I think you do need to ensure you are, as Liam said, like adjusting to what's being spoken about on LinkedIn, and also what you got engagement with previously, because it's often really clear what people want to hear more about. Like Fran, your last post, I think what came out of it was like, we talked about these always on nurtures, which we're going to talk about later. And people were like, that's really interesting. And on-demand nurture, how does that look like? Like, how does it work? Etc.
Yeah, that definitely works. I think that was something as well, like when I was writing that post, I included that in last minute, because I was like, we're doing these on-demand nurtures, quite interesting, but didn't really expect that to be like it wasn't the main focus, but like all of the comments and any like direct messages that I got were all based on that. So I think that's another thing as well. Like if you're too structured, then you kind of like deviate from writing about what people potentially want to hear. But I'm not great at it either, but I usually have a key theme and run with it for a while. But quite sporadic, I would say, in terms of like the actual stuff that I'm posting.
I'd say what we do, I think what we have been good at, and what we've seen success with, is where we've got an SME, so like an official SME, that is their role, which is Ryan Research and Dave Bentham. They are completely structured because we have it being run by a member of our team who is responsible for that, and they create the structure for the posts, they ensure they get the content ready, and they ensure it goes out on time. And with that, they have consistently been able to scale their following, like amazing engagement. And so we know it works. It's just we're probably, where we're not being owned by a member of our team, it's kind of on us to do it ourselves. That's probably where the consistency point is falling down. But that's, I guess, hopefully we've answered your question there, Charlie, I would say just I wouldn't over index on the theme and consistency to the point where you stop adding value, is my feeling. I don't want to name names, but certain people who I used to admire and love their content has definitely, I think I would say, I've gone too far the other way. Okay, so did I actually, let me just quickly check that I spoke to this. I didn't speak to this. So how do you scale the media machine? So this is really important. And it can definitely scale up and down depending on your org size and how many people you've got within the team. But for us, because we have a bigger team, I showed you the channels earlier, there's quite a few, and each channel has an owner, including our subject matter experts, apart from Fran, Liam, and myself, because we are marketers, we feel like we should be able to own our own channel. Obviously, we might need to relook at that a little bit, but yeah, each channel has an owner, and each channel has its own set of clear KPIs and goals. So I'm going to share with you, for example, what we set out when we brought on board Brian Research. He's only works with us on a sort of like it's sort of a consultancy capacity, so it's not full time in any way. But I wanted to make sure that we had really clear KPIs and goals that we were working towards with him, which also then dictated consistency and structure of everything that we put into it, maximize the value that we got. So we wanted to scale LinkedIn followers to over 24k by the end of June 2022, adding 1k a month. That was the target that we set out. We overachieved that every month, which was great. And then we wanted to contribute to an uplift in organic unique blog views by 25% every quarter. Now, the thinking behind this was that because Ryan was going to be our subject matter expert on all things sales content, that by writing better quality content, we were actually going to be generating more audience for that content. So that has actually borne out, and we actually increased by like over 50%. So almost doubled against the target there, which has been amazing to see. Ryan was to become the voice of our sales newsletter, with subscribers increased 50% every quarter. Again, this one we overachieved significantly, and it was kind of an input and an output KPI, which I think was also important because it meant that it held us accountable to getting that content out of Ryan. He's become the host of our sales podcast side of the Revenue Champions. And I think one thing that he's been amazing at for us has been sourcing influential and interesting speakers. So we have weekly episodes with Brian and other sales leaders now. And he was tasked with scaling active listeners to over 150 from the 35 that they were at the start of the year. I think we're actually over 1,000 now. So massive achievement on that one too. And just the consistency of episodes has really helped generate that. And then producing regular video content to help drive our YouTube subscribers up to 10k in year one. This one, I think this is probably the one we're lagging the most on. And again, I think that's probably because we've indexed more on content and snippets for using on our paid social side of things, and also organic social versus YouTube SEO and the trending videos that we've actually discovered work best on YouTube. So I think that one's one we need to focus on more going into the next half year. And then running bi-weekly live events. Again, that was an input KPI, but that kept both Ryan and us true to a regular cadence of live events, of which we were able to create loads of content, which we were able to use for the newsletter. We could actually then repurpose for episodes of Revenue Champions. We could use as video for YouTube. We could actually turn into blogs, which drove the organic blog fees. And also he could cut them into bite-sized content for his LinkedIn as well. So that, there's some examples of some KPIs. Oh, we've got an ask, Liam, for you to do a dedicated session on email nurtures. You do love an email nurture. So.
Yeah. I could also do, which might be better as well, just like a recorded video, actually, just running through the first one that we get live. So yeah,
cool. There we go. Liam has committed to that, so keep him honest, get him on LinkedIn and make sure he delivers. And then I wanted to touch on like org structure. So I don't want you to freak out, because I realize that when we do present these, we're very fortunate now that we've got a big team, so there's a lot of people there to help make this everything happen basically at Cognism. But I did think it was interesting to talk through how our structure has completely changed from the days when we were doing lead generation. And a lot of that does come down to just the change in focus and the emphasis we have on quality content now. So one key thing is that we've separated our SEO writers from our, what we call our journalists, our story hunters, because we feel like on the SEO side, it's very different goals. We're trying to drive, essentially capture demand. There is a bit of create demand in there for some of the higher volume keywords that we go after, which are more volume play rather than intent play. But ultimately, most of the stuff that we're driving on the SEO side is actually like capture demand activity. It's like very highly skilled and focused, and there are certain methods and ways in which you need to write, which don't necessarily go hand in hand with creating great create demand content. So we have separated them out so that that can sit very separately from what we call our story finders and our journalists, who their whole purpose is to be writing the types of content, the quality of content that's going to create demand for us at Cognism within our personas. So they're looking for stories, things that are of interest in Reddit and subreddits, then like LinkedIn, what's trending, what's not within our key personas, and scaling that all out. And since we've done this, the blog traffic and engagement has like been staggering in terms of, I should have put the chart on here, but in terms of the growth and the projection on that. So it has massively been successful, and it means that we're more successful on the SEO side, and we're more successful on our audience creation side when it comes to that journalistic content. And then the other key thing that we've done is that we put content execs in the demand gen team as well. So because we're very aware that content is not just blog writing, especially in this world of like a media engine. And if we're taking it really, really seriously, and we want to be where our audience are in all the places they want to be delivered content, in all the ways they want the content to be delivered, then that's multiple formats. That's blogs, it's text writing for SMEs on their LinkedIn organic pages, it's videos, it's snippets, it's live events. And we want that all to be tied together with all of the activity that's going out for that persona within a demand creation perspective. And so we feel like having these content people sitting within the demand generation teams that we're really going to be able to deliver that next level of content and that variety that we need to succeed and power the media engine further. So that's one big change that we've made. And then so then I guess the question would be, okay, that's great, but then you've got people responsible for content in SEO, you've got people responsible for content which is like journalistic, and you've got people responsible for content sitting in these demand gen pods. Like, how on earth are you making that all work together and there's no like repetition and double work? So I thought I would just like really look at this from like a project process perspective and what we've built out. So I think we've spoken to you a lot about these content buckets, but essentially we think about our content in 4 buckets. So we have thought leadership, which is everything that's very high level. This would be a great example of that. Something that we're talking about, a broad theme that's not related to the product at all. And then we have our content bucket, which there could be a dotted line back to the product. Then we have our product bucket, which is all about the product value, talking about pain points, etc. And then we have our social proof bucket, which is kind of as it says on the tin, it's every like sort of case study led, that type of content, which is really showing the value of Cognism through the eyes of actual users. And so we'll have people working on content that sits in each of those 4 buckets for each persona across each of the 3 areas of content that I already mapped out. And so the way that we're able to structure this and ensure that we don't have any double work and everything is super clear is we use Asana, but you could use Trello or another free, you could probably just use like Google Sheets if you wanted. And we have like one board for each bucket, and then we break it out by personas, and then there'll be projects within that. And we're very tight on like, if it's not in Asana, then you're not working on it, or it never happened. So it's a bit like that sort of Salesforce rule that sales have. But here's an example of a project under the sales persona where we've got these scripts, which I was talking about, which will go towards our video team's KPIs on video. So you've got Emily, who runs video, kind of working on these as well as Joe, who runs the whole of the content team. These will also get used in some of our SEO work, because we know that like including videos and SEO content is really good for ranking. But also it's going to be really, really vital for all of the work that the all of the demand generation team are doing. And all that, when they're looking at their always on buckets and that they're running on paid, and so all of those people need to be involved in this essentially. And so that's how we run the project, and we make sure that there's visibility on it. We have clear deadlines and everyone knows who's responsible for what. Fran, I don't know if you want to touch on it a little bit more, because you're actually running this right now with your org.
Yeah, cool. Can do. So yeah, I guess so we have in the DG pod, we have like 2 content execs, like senior content executives, who focus on, we've got 2 core personas, so like 1 on each persona. I think the important thing here, and I've actually just ran a meeting like today with the team, like in the office, it's just like how content are like thinking about that collaboration with demand gen. Additionally, like, so I know one of the guys on my team, like he would come up with a list of blog titles, and that'll be it. So it'd be like, this quarter, these are the blogs I'm going to write. And then that was kind of it. There was kind of like disassociation between what then DG were working on. So I think like for me, like the important thing is like clear line of communication, and that the content team or the content team on the pod, they're predominantly like responsible for like the whole campaign with us in DG. So they're aligned on like the messaging, they're aligned on like the different channels that we use. They can be working on a blog post one day, maybe a video script another day. We're all working together on copy for like ads that we're going to put on paid social. So I think like we very much, it's taken a few weeks to kind of get used to the collaboration, but now it's like we're very much all as like one team. And I think it can be a lot more powerful if you can align on and have that focus on what you're working on, as opposed to everyone working on different things. I think that's like super important. So we'll have like key focuses on one campaign, but then we'll have this always on piece where content will be well aware what the subject matter expert is working on, as well as DG. So for me, like the key learnings have been that constant like clear line of communication, and that we're all one team, as opposed to like all one team as opposed to like working in silos. So we just got a message. How do you mind sharing how large your content team is? So we've got on the demand gen team, we have 2 content writers, like content and SEO executives, and then we've got the wider content team responsible for SEO and journalistic content. So how many are we there now? About 5 or 6? 4. Is it 4? Okay, it's 4. So we're 6 strong for content. But I think, as Alice mentioned earlier, that definitely wasn't always the way, was it? So we've slowly built that out.
I mean, we used to have just one content person working, and I think it's the same kind of process. So you just can build it out once you start proving out the value, and it doesn't need to necessarily always be as well. Like this is where I think people can go wrong, in that you have to be a content writer to do content, because when we talk about content, we're talking about everything from like ad copy, landing page copy, to video snippets, to LinkedIn posts, etc. Like some things that really wouldn't necessarily fall in like a traditional content role, which is why we felt like there was definitely a position for that to sit more within a demand gen team in this whole create demand world. That's why we think about it that way. And then there's a question here from Dave: how do you drive content consumers to engage in a sales conversation? So the short answer, Dave, is we don't do this out as an outright tactic, if that makes sense. So what all we're trying to do in a nutshell with our content is educate people every day in the channels that they want to consume content in a meaningful way, with the view to the fact that we will be delivering content across all of those 4 buckets. And so they will be aware of Cognism, they'll be aware of what we do, they'll also be getting huge value from all of the other more content and thought leadership things that we put out, which have got nothing to do with Cognism and what we could offer them. And so the belief is that actually when B2B contact data becomes an issue, we will be top of mind and someone that they will come and evaluate, if not be the sole choice for that evaluation. And we just want to make sure that we're consistently continuing to deliver that type of quality content that puts us front of mind for when that happens. We're not trying to create some artificial funnel, move someone through it, or assume any form of intent anymore. I think that's kind of the old world. There are things that we are looking at which I think can help maximize the chances of getting someone who consumes your content to actually even think about having a sales conversation. And that's just like the website journey. So what's that rabbit hole that they go on when they read one piece of content? Like, what's the journey from that content to further reading? Whereabouts does that content kind of sit in, whether they, is it a piece of content that has a dotted line into product, and therefore it might be quite interesting to go to like a comparison page of Cognism and other B2B data provider tools as a read more item, or is that piece of content very top level thought leadership, and actually they're probably only interested in learning more about this whole create demand gen world. And we'll try to get better at that, and then what those CTAs look like and those on-site website journeys look like as well. And then ultimately we do also run retargeting. So anyone who is interacting, engaging with us, we do have some retargeting plays. So yeah, but it's all aimed to let people come to us rather than us push anything on them. And then, have we worked with any agencies or freelancers to support the shift to the media create demand world, or have you built this all in-house? So short answer is all in-house, which is why I'd say we are not a finished article, and there is no playbook for this. Like, there isn't really a shining light example of an organization who have absolutely nailed it, in my opinion, in the B2B world. So we're just learning and iterating as we go, as well as that's from everything from like what we're actually tracking and how we track it, to the types of content, how we build that out. The one that we have actually had a lot of help from Refine Labs, I would say, on content buckets, and I think that's been a really useful thing for us in terms of structuring and thinking about the content. So previous to that, we didn't really have this thing called content buckets and those 4 buckets that I spoke about, and that could create a lot of chaos. So give Refine Labs credit for those. Thank you, Refine Labs. Anything more, Liam, Fran?
No, I think that's it. I think I can move on just to dive a little bit deeper into that, just in terms of what we're measuring. So we've content that gives buyers an advantage. So I just wanted to talk really tactically about the old way and what we were doing previously, and then try and show you visually what actions that we're taking now, which Alice has touched on, but then just kind of like what we're measuring and what that means for the team and like how they work. So hopefully this part can be super actionable, and as well for like any size team as well, because I think you can definitely scale this. So I guess the old way for us was a typical lead generation model and how we thought about content. So for example, I've put the example of this cold calling playbook. So this is cold calling is a topic that we run a lot on to one of our core personas, which is sales. So we'd create an ebook on a popular topic, which happens to be cold calling in this case. The primary goal would be to generate leads. So we'd add this to a gated landing page, run lead gen ads on paid social, and we'd really measure success based on the cost per lead. So that's what we'd be optimizing for. In all honesty, I'd probably spend quite a lot of my time, especially, and I think Liam will attest to this as well, in meetings with sales, checking that once these leads had gone into Salesforce, if they made it in there, because we had a lot of broken Zapiers and all sorts of things going on, we just have a conversation with sales about, are the leads being followed up with? What's the quality like? So really, that was kind of it in terms of like the content, the focus around the content. So I guess there wasn't much thought after that. I'd usually have like the odd conversation saying we could make it into an infographic, but then it would usually not happen because design was too busy. So I think really just to be really transparent and really honest, the content was good content, but it was just in like the form of like a 100-page ebook, and we didn't really think about distributing it elsewhere. So yeah, again, the main focus, what would keep me up at night would be how many leads we'd got and how much they were, basically. So if we just go to the next, can I move to the next slide? Oh, thanks. So that's kind of like the old lead gen way that we used to focus on. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about the shift to like the demand gen world. So this is a topic, the cold calling topic again, it's exactly the same topic. It's served to that key persona. I'll take the screenshot in the middle here. So what we actually, one of the first things, we took our ebooks, which used to be in like a PDF format, and we put them onto a landing page and made them really interactive. So it's very easy to navigate through. I can always like send an example of this as well afterwards. It's easy to navigate through. It had like bits of media on there as well, so like video content, and we were well aware people wanted to consume things in different ways. So that's like one of the first things we did. With this like interactive landing page, like our focus is on like time on page, like reducing bounce rate, thinking about like the engagement that we're getting, as opposed to generating leads from it, because we would run this now, we'll run ads to this ebook now, well, it's like an interactive page but completely ungated. So those are the kind of things that we care about. We'd kind of take the same topic. And as Alice mentioned, like with our subject matter experts, so Ryan, one of our subject matter experts, we manage his schedule, for example. So we basically like help ghostwrite posts. So we have a schedule. So we say, right, okay, Ryan, this is the theme that we're going to focus on for the next 2 weeks. We'll have a meeting on it. We'll write the post with Ryan, and then he will produce like a range of like video content posts. He will do like cold calling live every other week. So for me, like this has been like a real game changer in the sense that it's Ryan's insights that are actually driving this. So we come up with a key theme, but it's Ryan's expertise that we're actually serving to our audience. And that means that, you know, we're actually providing even more value because it's coming from someone that's like living and breathing these sales tactics every day. So here's like an example of a video snippet that we'd run on cold calling. For us, again, like it's not generating leads or like a cost per lead. We're looking at video views, we're looking at engagement, we're looking at click-through rates, and really videos as well. Like some of them will optimize to go through to a blog if there's like more information, but if the key takeaways are in that video, we'll optimize it for in-feed. So what we care about is engagement in feed and people interacting with it. And we don't necessarily have to take them away from LinkedIn if that's like their platform of choice and that's where our audience are hanging out. Again, we've mentioned like this cold calling live, like start, stop, repeat, which Ryan hosts for us as well. So he's like bringing in all this expertise and all of his like training materials. And again, here, it's not about getting people to sign up and generating leads and then asking, sending them an email and asking them for a meeting. What we really care about here is like qualitative feedback, actionable insights. We repurpose all of these video snippets, like on social, for example. So for us, it's like, even just talking through that slide, it's sort of making me realize that the focus is on the value behind the content. And now that's what I think about constantly. Like, is this going to engage our audience? Is this interesting? Can we showcase this in the best way for the platform that our audience hang out on? So it's like super important. And it's kind of, I guess, like a weight off my mind that like we're not thinking about leads anymore and we're just thinking about producing like the best possible content out there. So again, like just the next slide, just like some other ideas. So if you look at the podcast episode, so that podcast, we actually repurposed the cold calling live episodes that we do with Ryan and put those on our podcast. Again, it's qualitative feedback, it's building up brand awareness, securing more subject matter experts as guests. So we're really just like thinking about how we can be super valuable and super relevant. Again, like the ads we run now, instead of collecting leads, we look at this ungated approach. We want engagement, click-through rates. We want to optimize for web visits in some cases. So again, this is like ways in which we've taken that one cold calling ebook and we've produced an interactive landing page and spun off all of these extra things around the topic, very much related to Ryan, our subject matter expert. So again, that's just for one of our personas. We do the same across our other personas as well, like the marketing persona, for example. So yeah, I guess just to summarize on it. So to create this value-driven content, so we need to be relatable, utilize subject matter experts where possible, and decide on the content types. So we've got different buckets here. So what are you looking to achieve, like, with your piece of content? Is it a thought leadership piece, which is like hierarchical content away from the product, something more tactical? Is it bottom of funnel, sort of product focused, or is it more like social proof? So I think, like, if you can bucket your content into these types, it really makes you a lot more structured, and think about what you're actually delivering. And then I guess, like, the main thing is, and again, this is even if you are a small team, like, start by focusing on the channels that work best for you. So, for me, like marketing, I used to think that you'd have to have a presence on every single channel, but we've realized if we take a few channels and do them really, really well, we can double down on what works. So I guess that's where we become really structured and really repeatable, and we can be testing other channels in the background, but like LinkedIn is where we started to place our big bets, for example. So, like, if it was my channel of choice, I'd look at value-driven company posts, like not thinking about promotion. I'd look at testing video snippets in a tactical way, using in that content bucket, product ads based on like customer and prospect insights, and also like building a brand. So with the employee posting, I think, like we've admitted, we're not the best at it, but we've started to give it a go, and I think it's been like super valuable, and we've had a lot more engagement from doing that, and from starting to do these episodes of Demandism as well. So I think the main things around this are, you can start small and you can start by focusing on one channel. And then the checklist that I always sort of live by with my team as well is, have we listened to customer calls, identified the key pain points, how are we helping to solve this? But then also, how can we deliver this content? That's the main thing. Like, how can we best deliver it on the channel of choice, and optimize for those formats as well. So yeah, I think like that's how we're approaching it right now.
Thanks, Fran. Amazing. Cool. Now we can bring Leah. It's your chance. Right, take it away.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to talk about like some like how to sort of create ungated experiences, or like what we like, do when we create ungated experience, like an example, and then I'll go through how we also measure it, and then some ideas where we can also, I'll discuss a bit the idea of the always on email nurture. So here's an example activity. We're kind of in a media machine inception here. You are fully sucked into the media machine. You're on Demandism, and you can start off with something like this, right? So you have your alive that we run, monthly, might get up to like twice a month. I think something that B2C is really good at is volume, and something that B2B could get better at as an industry. And I think that volume is like key, especially when running anything sort of like if we're acting like a media company. So you take your Demandism episode, and then kind of as Fran was saying, with all of the content, you can then break that out across loads of different ways. So as you see here, we then release that Demandism episode on our podcast. So we edit it for that. We then have a load of video snippets and stuff running on paid social. There's like a picture like of my post that I've done for organic social on my own profile. Then we get it written up as a newsletter, take away some of the hot takes and send that out as a newsletter. And then also we have it written up as a blog, and then that's posted on the blog. So there you go. You've like split it up into a million different ways. And I'm pretty sure there's maybe even more channels we might use it on than just that. But like that's some of the main ones. So who does all the chopping and publishing? So that actually sits with, as we were talking before, we've got those different pods for in the demand gen team for sales and marketing. So the DG content person would take away and do that, and start splitting and briefing in the snippets of video to our video team, and taking and also writing up for like any write-ups still. But then the content team write our newsletter, the journalists, and also the blog. Is that right, Alice? I've got those.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's take this. This is a really good question. This is actually really practical to show like how different people own this. So it goes back to where I was showing you that Asana project view, and it also comes back to the channel owners. So as I was saying, every channel in our media engine has an owner. So the podcast, for example, that is owned in the sales persona by our sales pod. So it would be Tim or Ashley, for example, who would take to, well, if it's marketing, so this is Jamie's persona. So Jamie will make sure that he briefs in getting that podcast created off the back of this episode of Demandism, and he's actually a demand gen marketer, so he would own that piece. When it comes to paid social, it would also sit within a demand gen pod to own all of the buckets we spoke about and all of the content that sits in those buckets that are being promoted on paid social. So when it comes to needing new content, building out more content within a bucket, this is when they would look to all of the content that we've created and say, right, well, this episode of Demandism, I'm going to snip up some of the best pieces, which is probably not going to be where Liam's called out for falling asleep, but it'll be something a bit juicier, and run those as snippets on our paid social, probably within our thought leadership bucket. So again, Jamie would be owning that. When it comes to organic social, the channel owner for that is Beanal, who sits in our content team, and she always listens to our podcast episodes because she actually is also responsible for the blog write-up of those episodes. So while writing that blog, she'll be thinking about, there's some great content in here which I could create 3 or 4 organic posts to power the organic channel with. And because she has organic channel KPIs, she's always looking for the best content to feed that. And she knows that she can come to this as a source of that content. And the blog is always just an output that has to happen off the back of any live, and that will be owned by those writers within the content team. And again, with the newsletter, we have a content writer assigned to each newsletter, and that they would then look at this episode to debrief that from. And it would probably likely also, in this case, be Beanal. So yeah, that's a good breakdown of like all of the different people who'd be involved, and that's where like a project, whether you want to use like Asana or a free tool or something like that to actually spin this all off from, is really helpful. But it all comes back to clear KPIs and metrics, the clear ideas of channels you want to be using, and clear channel owners or owner.
Yeah. So on to the next slide. I will. Thank you. So what do you measure when we're running, which I think people kind of asked about before, I alluded to, like, what do you measure when you're running everything as sort of like this media company, media machine? So obviously you don't focus heavily on the direct results. So no, like leads or demo requests, like are not like going to be your main measurement of this. Instead, we sort of active for a media company and focus on measuring the success of the actual content itself. So that means your primary measure of success is like engagement, feedback, and interaction with it. So not leads, meetings, books, or conversations. It's not a conversion-led measurement approach. So obviously for each channel and each different way of distributing the content and putting it out there, you have like a different thing to track. So for example, if we were looking at paid distribution, we'd obviously be looking at likes, comments, click-through rates, or whichever like goal is relevant, so click-through rate, video views, or like overall reach in feed. Then obviously when you're looking at time then spent back on your website, we're looking at like page views, bounce rate, time on page, scroll depth, things like that. We're tracking first and last touch UTMs as well, so we can see when where people are coming into the website from first time they potentially fill a form, and then last time. So we can see like what channels have like an effect there. And we're also then looking at that last referring website link that gets pulled straight into Salesforce, so we can see maybe like which blog they've visited before they did take any final action. Obviously direct feedback from your ICP so is a key one for this. So all of the stuff that you put in the comments now, like if everyone was like This is as boring as Liam looked in the Liam looked bored in the first 10 minutes. Then we won't be repeating that again, and we'll be trying to create something different. And then obviously for like podcasts, we would track like subscribers, total listen, average audience, and attendee numbers. We've also set up anonymous conversions on LinkedIn. So this is kind of simple. You basically can set up like a conversion on your thank you page of your demo form. And then anyone who's come through from LinkedIn in the last 30 days would register as an anonymous conversion, so you can start to have a little bit of an insight into what like your LinkedIn ads are driving. And then obviously we're looking at like for newsletter, we're looking at like the subscribers, but also really importantly replies, and the click-through rate on it. Like the replies that we get like are really what sort of like feed what we do next, because people do reply and say something great every so often, and that like really feeds like, okay, we're gonna follow our nose with this content as well. I think that's pretty much everything. But the whole point is now you don't just have this lead number that you follow, but you have this like a load of metrics that give you some sort of input to what people are actually engaged with and want to see more of. But then obviously it's all about the business results, but the results come kind of separate to what you're running in your media machine, but they obviously work in tandem. So you've got one set of metrics and the others. And for us, like, this is like our results. Like the quantitative, like we've got, look at our direct demo requests from April through to July. They've just been on a steady increase up. So we've just been like seeing an increase there in direct demo requests the whole way. The light blue is like direct inbound, and the darker blue is our paid, so like Google ads. And then we've seen the same reflection in pipeline there. So then we've seen a steady increase in that, and it's really started to spike now as like the media machine, I feel like, has got into like full motion. And as I was talking about earlier, like I feel like we've really got that consistency down, and volume, which is just really important. And then something that you can't really quantify, but the qualitative is just stuff that we start to hear back from the sales team, which like obviously feels great. Like getting any positive feedback from the sales team is brilliant. So but yeah, we've just been getting more and more now as we've sort of been running this sort of media machine. The inbound demo requests that are coming in are just of really high quality, and people who are really into it. Yeah, apologies for Sam's use of profanity.
I have to walk out.
You can all LinkedIn him and tell him he's a very rude man, but
he does close one of the most inbound. He's like always closing those inbound leads.
Yeah, he's an inbound top seller, so we love him.
Liam, for Marissa, please can you talk more about anonymous conversions on LinkedIn?
Oh yeah, so when you go into LinkedIn and you go to set up your ad, you can have at the bottom of the first section of setup, you can create a conversion. And if you've got the pixel on, if you set up the pixel on your LinkedIn pixel on your website, so that's you take the code and you can just put it into the top of your header. You can then on that conversion setup on LinkedIn, you can put the URL of the page that is like after your demo form. So like a thank you page, then you know that people who have landed on it have completed your demo form. And then on LinkedIn, you can select the time period that you want that conversion to be up for. So if they've been cookied on your website for how many days ago, would it then register as a conversion in LinkedIn? So you can do like you could set it up how you want. We've got ours set like for 30 days at the moment. So just like if anyone's clicked through from an ad from LinkedIn to our website within 30 days and then submits a demo form, we register it as an anonymous conversion to LinkedIn. So it's not direct, and obviously they could have gone a million other places, but it gives us some sort of idea of what LinkedIn's driving. So then other ideas to consider. So there's the on-demand nurtures. So like, is it time for a Netflix style email nurture? So ungating content means that your focus switches to 100% about delivering it in a way that's best consumed. And then if we think about that, then we think about who are we to say that anyone should receive any piece of content at any time. So you know, the old school is that you like send one email and then 4 days later they'll be ready for this piece of content, and 3 days later they'll be ready for this piece of content. But we're not here to prescribe when anyone's ready for anything. And like sometimes you get an email and you've got an hour to spend reading content, and other times you get an email and you've got like literally no time. So the whole idea of like an on-demand nurture is that someone can access it all as and when they want. So our sort of structure that we've gone for this, and we started with like a closed lost ops nurture that we're trialing this on, so I'll be able to come back with like proper results as well. It's that the email nurture still runs in a period of like breaked up time, because also who we decide that people don't want to receive content that way, but it drives them to the same landing page. And on the landing page, which I can share, we have a drop down, like a little like a key, like a taskbar at the side, and they can select the different content over the different days as well that they want. So if they want to consume that nurture all in one day, they can. If they want to come back to it and see that content, they can as well. So it's all on just one massive page that they can access as and when they want. So that's kind of like the idea behind it. And then I think where we want to take it even further is obviously just make that page more and more interactive, so people can come back to that page as and when they want, even when the nurture is finished. So it's not like something that they have to like, they can only do inside the nurture or not. And then for another idea that we've been trying to consider is like things about the website journey. So how easy is your content to navigate on your website? So one thing you can do is like use of your drift bot, and we've got a long way to go with this actually, but we just started with it, trying to make it like more engaging, use Driftbot to push people around the website as well, to highlight relevant content when it's needed, and just be like another sort of tool that people can engage with and like use to access more content, like when Alice says, when they're like down that rabbit hole. We've got uses of different CTAs, and we've got dynamic recommendations set up through HubSpot so that we can recommend content that's relevant to them, content that they're already viewing. This is like a new idea that I thought about, where it's like we actually sort of got from an interview, but I like the idea. It's like move away from compartmentalizing your content. So I think if we think like a true media company, the content is available all over the website, whereas quite often in B2B and SaaS, like all the content is like in the blog or under the section resources, and elsewhere like the content is not available. So if you push all the content out, so that you've got like relevant content on product pages, relevant content on persona pages and things like this, like you're no longer compartmentalizing the content, you're making your whole website sort of like a media base for people to come to. And then obviously we've done the interactive web pages over ebooks, and then use of video and audio in pages, like particularly on those pages, which is something we've done. And then we've started to like sort of delve into like interactive games and quizzes. We've got tools on the website as well. So we've got like this one here is we've got like an SDR personalities quiz there, which so you can find out what type of SDR you are, and all these sort of things that can like help create like a more interactive journey on the website as well. And I'm going to look at would love to have dedicated set of drift chatbots. I'm glad you think it's inspirational. I feel like we've got a lot of things I want to do to make it even better, so I will take you up on that, but once I've got amazing results, and I'm really chuffed with it. But I'm glad that you think it's good so far. Like we've tried to do some work on it.
Amazing. Has anyone got that link right now to add to the chat quickly for the on-demand email nurture?
I will see it if I can.
And I think when we were talking about drift, actually, it always feels like the mountain you'll never summit, because there is always so much that can be done. So we are working on it, and we will keep you guys informed on the journey as we go, how we build it out. And I think, let me just check, we've got another comment. You might be my favorite member of the chat today. Thank you for that. And thanks Matt as well. Thank you guys all for attending. if we dig, I don't know, we're going to be able to dig this link out before we end the chat.
Yeah, I'm just getting it now.
Okay. Tentatively. Yeah, we'll pop it in the chat and then give you guys some time to grab it so that you can save it for a swipe file or whatever you do with your content that you want to look at later. I think it's a good takeaway actually. Across all of our slides, we will in future episodes make sure we chat links to examples, because I think it can be very difficult to actually showcase everything we're talking about, and it can get quite cramped on the side as well. So good note for a next session. And yeah, also just to remember, I will say it again, keep your eyes out for updates on the swag. It's really good. And also yeah, the prize draw that will come through that, and the prize is really good as well. We're going to keep doing our best to make sure that we push the boundaries of B2B marketing and keep you guys yeah, along on the journey with us and what we're learning.
I'm sorry, this link is not working.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
You can send it with our follow-up email. Shall we say that we'll do that?
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. Okay. The link, which will make you definitely open that follow-up email, will be in the follow-up email. So yeah, we will make sure we send that across. It'll probably be tomorrow now because it's getting quite late here. But thank you guys, and speak to us soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.